What's up, everybody? One Fun Guy podcast in the studio. Sorry about that. I went live and my phone froze up on me, so I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna share this out real quick before Kelly gets on. I'm on my iPad now. I went live on my phone and like TikTok was being weird. So, anyways, needless to say, I'm here now. Let me share this out before he gets on. We'll see what we can come up with. See who's on. And we'll go from there. We'll have a fun night tonight, guys. We're not going to stay on very long. It'll be about an hour tonight. We're just going to see what we can come up with and chat about and go from there. We just want to have fun and kind of see what's happening. So I'm going to share this out real quick. Kelly's actually hopping on now. So what's up, buddy?
Oh, good. How are you?
Good. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas or belated or whatever you say.
Yeah. That's still the season, right?
Yeah. How was it for you?
It was good. We had a little mishap with Crystal's mom. Ended up not feeling the greatest, so they didn't come over. So we made more food than we had planned for. But now we get to eat leftovers for a few weeks, so it'll be kind of not the worst thing in the world, right?
I was gonna say, out of all the things that go wrong, I'm sorry that she didn't feel all that great, but hey, the food is pretty good. What did you do? Like the turkey thing, or?
We did ham, sweet potatoes. Beth, what's up?
Hey, Beth.
Allie, what's happening, girl?
Allie. Yeah, we just had a chill thing. We had a Christmas Eve at Heather's sister's house where there were a few people over. Her brother-in-law, he smoked some brisket, which was awesome.
Awesome.
I love smoked brisket, and he's a master at it. Like, I think that I'm not too shabby of a barbecuer, but
yeah.
When it comes to the brisket,
Sabrina, what's up? Welcome.
Hey, Sabrina. Yeah, Ali popped in a little bit earlier today when I was doing a live too, so it's great to see her here. Yeah, no, and last night it was just me and Heather.
Awesome.
Just I don't know, just
what a great gift. The I love you. That was awesome.
That was nice.
Was that Ellie who sent that?
I don't know.
Whoever sent that, thank you so much. It didn't show up.
Yeah, no, we were. I did a bunch of.
Ellie, you are awesome. Thank you.
No, I did some traditional Swedish type smorgasbord Christmas table type things. So, and then ate and watched Walking Dead all night. So that was cool.
How do you like The Walking Dead?
How's it going? I've never been into the zombie thing so much, but it was like I usually do some sort of Christmas binge of some sort. Was thinking Rings of Power, but it still just doesn't hit me. So it's like I've never seen Walking Dead. I saw that there was a new spinoff or whatever, so it's like let's give it a shot, and it's really good. Yeah, so we're already on season 2. So
yeah,
after a day, so it's all good. I have no topic today other than I'm pretty glad that Christmas is over, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wasn't really feeling it this year so much. And after our show last week where we did the Christmas songs, I've come to realize that I am really not into Christmas music, and not even metal can make it good. So
it's an acquired taste, right? Like people get into it for the holidays. They get into it because, it's the spirit of the season, right? But I mean, not everybody's a fan of it, right? And if you don't like it, you're stuck listening to it because it's all you hear all the time, right? Go into a store, go into every, you know what I mean? So it's like, Rosie, what's up?
But what I was thinking on that, and hey Rosie, there are so many genres that other types of music that if you put metal into it or insert that into metal, it tends to work.
Right.
and that's anything from like Bollywood music to
Sure.
symphonic to whatever, right? But not Christmas music.
Yeah.
It ends there. Like that's the one type of music that it just doesn't work. So I think we've found one limitation of what metal can do.
Yeah.
But
And the thing is that like even though it's a limitation on it though, right? Like it still does stuff that, is there that makes something at least a little bit more interesting and tolerable, right?
yeah, and I mean, if we look back at the year a little bit, what I feel like an observation is that ambition has been a sort of a hallmark, right? And also a sense of being adventurous. Blood Incantation, did the Pink Floyd thing. Isan has been doing the symphonic thing for a long time, but did it really great this year. And it just feels like the ones on the or people just go nuts with how complicated the riffs are and how fast the drums go and all that stuff. It just feels like it's been a year of pushing boundaries in all
Right.
sorts of directions. I feel like very little on the top lists of the year have been straight up,
Right.
straightforward shit. It's yeah, metal has reached a level of ambition and complexity that I think it as far as what I can tell hasn't really been so prominent. um but then we saw
Yeah.
Poppy also, knocked loose in Poppy. That was a good thing to see. Lady Ivy, good to have
So
you.
so I think that the funny thing is about like metal this year, I find it more is that like I like the experimental type of metal that's out there, and I know even in like a subgenre of like hardcore, you kind of have that like techno metal now that's been kind of taking over, and like Knocked Loose is very good at it, right? Like they take
Mm.
some industrial, they take some like hardcore, they take some basic like old school metal, and they kind of mix it together, and then they kind of put this like ambient dubstep almost over it, and it's very unique, right? Because it's kind of like it's catching on now, popularity. But I think like the experimental side of metal now is like kind of taking it to the forefront, right? Where I
Yeah,
think you have the issues of bands that are kind of just tired of like your normal metal and like doing covers, where like I see a lot of bands like Motionless in White are like doing synth pop covers now, where they're like doing like kind of like more 80s synth type of style music, right? And they're mixing that with like the hardcore type of element, right? You see a lot of metal bands now, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say that, and it's aging us so very much, but people are covering Rammstein now, right? Like they're considered
right.
old school metal at this point, right? And like we
Yeah,
grew up when I first heard of Rammstein with Du Hast, their album had just come out. That was 2000, right?
yeah,
2001. And so
I know.
now you look now new bands are
25
covering.
years ago almost.
Right. So it's like when you look at it, I think that like kind of like that experimental, music now I think is going on to the big thing of the trend going into 2025, I think, is you're going to see a lot of I think personally I think you're going to see a lot more collaborations. I think you're going to have rappers and pop people playing alongside and with metal bands. I see that being kind of the future. I see bands that kind of have kind of taken a backlash to a lot of stuff are going to now be the forefront of metal, right? And I only say that because like I'm not gonna lie, like Limp Bizkit shocked the shit out of me, right? Like I didn't think that a band that would have been popular in that era comes back onto the scene and basically steals it, right? Like they were
Yeah,
getting more people watching their stuff than you had Metallica and Testament and Exodus and all these other bands. Like Limp Bizkit stole 2024. Like they took it back. And I was never a fan of them back in the day, but like you can't not acknowledge what they're doing now.
yeah, yeah. No, that's true. I mean, it's kind of business as usual a little bit. That a lot of the old dudes sort of did really great comeback type things,
Right.
right? So Limp Bizkit is one, and Slayer came back and played some shows, and Metallica had one of the most successful tours of all time, and all that, and Rammstein too, for that matter, or whatever, right?
Right.
So that's a business as usual. But I mean that's been the norm for a while. But like we said, it's either the newer bands seem to be more experimental, or they're doing what also always works, which is to go back to nostalgia. So there's
Oh yeah.
there's a resurgence of the, like in a lot of, I do a lot of lives where I listen to bands that whoever's in the chat, like, let me hear your band, and a lot of them actually sound a lot like 90s type,
Yeah.
late 80s or 90s type bands too. So there's that whole 20-year cycle, right? 20
Right.
years later, people revisit, like you were saying with Rammstein and all that stuff, right? So that's happening. But I do like the fact that there's
Excuse me.
experiment. Jeez, are you okay?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I do like the experimentation. One thing that I just noticed in myself that I like a lot is that there's a lot of, like, fast blast beat type of things, but
Hmm.
there are walls of sound that are kind of drony, like atmospheric background type thing, but it's still like really fast drumming on top of that.
Yeah.
That's something that's been come into prominence, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah. And
Just
another thing too, that, like, not to interrupt you and cut you off, but, like, I think one of the bands, when you asked, like, best metal album of 2024 and, like, what's in store for 2025, I kind of think that, like, in my opinion, I think Sleep Token's going to run away with it. They
mm,
have just such an, like, ambient, like, metal, thrash, old school kind of thing going on, but yet they play that kind of, like, laid back, mellow, easygoing. And I think what they're trying to do is, and I know we talked about this a few weeks ago, but I think they're trying to draw the girls in. And I think that's going to matter now, right? Because they are hardcore enough to have the guy fans be happy with them, but they're also ambient and eclectic. And they kind of have that, like, Elton John vibe where, like, the girls can get into it, where it's not all hardcore, all aggression all the time in your face. They'll play a very, very hardcore song, and then the next one is pianos and acoustic guitar and like overtone melodies when he sings. Like, so that kind of gives the headbangers a break, and it kind of introduces the, oh, well, all the fans that are here to hear our, ambient stuff now can get into it. And then they'll play another hardcore song, and then they'll play a lighter song. And then the singer will just basically sing a solo with no band at all because he's got a great voice. And I really think that, like, they are honing in on that female fan base where, like, they are going to steal a lot of these, less than hardcore girls away because they're making music for not only the guys but their girlfriends who might not necessarily be headbangers, right? Not every girl is a metalhead, right? Or, like,
yeah.
into that kind of thing. And I think you're starting to see bands kind of cater to that, right? Where it's not all aggression all the time in your face. It's a good mix of everything, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to disagree. I think it's a good topic. So anyone that's on here now too, like, what would your prediction for 2025 metal be? But I do hear Sleep Token come up all the time now, right? So they're definitely rising,
Yeah,
and
it's
they have, I don't know if they're gonna get up to the level of Ghost or whatever, right? But they also have that sort of mysterious air around them or whatever. So it's like,
right.
what are these guys all about, type of thing,
And Ghost was
So
right place, right time, right? Like, they just happened to be in the scene when it was kind of like a downtime of metal, right? Like, there are a lot of bands that get very lucky,
they're barely metal,
you
let's
know,
face it.
but right. But I'm just saying, like, in that genre, you have a band like Korn that comes around and does their thing when nobody else is doing it, and they're like the sleeper band. And I think Ghost was that way. Just there was a lot of just weird distinction in metal when they came out. There were a lot of bands making a resurgence, right? And they said, well, let's do something new. And they did, and it caught on, right? So they took the facade of black metal and they introduced it with the facade of like heavy metal, and they undertoned it with the facade of like a crooner, right? Let's like,
Yeah,
they took the Frank Sinatra right out of everything. Ellie, what's up? That was awesome. That was a love drop, and I felt it.
love drop.
Look at that. That was epic.
Very cool. That's awesome.
I love getting these like cool gifts that you don't see before, right? Like it's like,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
but but I think that like there's right place and right time. I'm actually really super excited to see what Howard Jones is going to do. I think he's got one of the best voices in metal. He was the singer for Killswitch Engage. Then he did Light the Torch. Now he's got his own project. I'm excited about him to see what he's got coming up. I'm excited to see what Pantera does next, like what if they're gonna drop an album or if they're gonna keep touring. I know Randy Bly just put out a book, so I think Lamb of God is gonna start touring again. I think they might hop on with Pantera again. So I'm kind of excited to see like what bands start touring with other bands now, right? And what newer bands are going to say, hey, listen, take us with you, type of thing, right? Where I think a lot of the bands, back in the day are just starting to tire out now, right? And they don't seem to be touring as much or as aggressive, where I think these younger bands are kind of like saying, listen, let's try to do this again, right?
Yeah, yeah, and on that note, it's started a bit this year, but I think it seems like for next year that there's going to be more like double bill, triple bill type of tours happening.
And more festivals, it looks like now too. It seems to be that's catching back on again.
But here, what I hear about festivals from folks on my feeds and stuff is that there's a lot of old people. Oh,
look at the cowboy! Look at that! That was awesome.
Thank you, Ali. No, but I mean, there's a lot of old guys that just maybe the 1 day pass, 3 days. No, that's
it's
way
tough,
too much,
right?
You have to buy a ticket and a new pair of comfortable shoes, the type of thing, right?
But I do say though, the festival is the best bang for your buck, though, right? Because if you're going to do a 3 day pass and you're a young kid, right? You're a teenager. Or a pre-adolescent, right? That 16 to 21, where you not necessarily can't drink at a show, but like you want to go, like those festivals like attract those kids, right?
Yeah.
They're made for the 18, 19-year-old kids that can just go all day and all night, right? And then wake up and do it again the next day. So their target audience is that 17 to 24 demographic. They're not worried about me and you going for 3 days because we'll never make it.
Yeah, no, exactly, right. So it is geared towards some, or that the festivals get some sort of big drag, and it's not enough just to have a big name that's current, but people are now thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna go to freaking Montana just because Acid. Oh, no, well, no, they're in Vegas, but Acid Bath, for example, right? They're reuniting for like a couple of festivals, and that's it. It's kind of like Slayer too, right? But so many people are into Acid Bath now and just want to see them live, and okay, fine, we'll get well paid and play a couple of festivals, and that'll be it, and that helps the festival. But I mean, I'm just looking at things that I've gotten tickets for, right? And I've said this many times what I'm going to see, but I mean, a double bill of Napalm Death and Melvins. Like, who would have thought that Napalm Death and Melvins would play on the same night on the same stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're obviously sort of grabbing each other's audiences to pay their bills, right? I mean, Meshuggah, they can have whoever they want almost, right? But it's Cannibal Corpse and Carcass and Meshuggah, like that's also like a triple bill. Like, who do people go see? Well, Meshuggah is number one, right? But it's still
Mallory, thank you.
So many... Oh, thank you, Mallory. Jeez, lightning bolts. It's like a regular Zeus going on here. That's amazing. But yeah, and I'm going to see Refused with Quicksand, and I mean, I know they're kind of the same era. Quicksand has some old school hardcore. Oh, jeez, yikes!
Now we hooked it up.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of the same era, and Quicksand has some members from Youth of Today, old hardcore, and Refused is an old hardcore band or whatever, right? So they kind of sort of fit together, but it's still like, you know, it's still a good double bill type of thing, right? So I just feel like uh, that seems to be a thing, you know, like there are these, you know, two, three
Yeah.
otherwise headliners on their own that are touring together in order to fill the venues and you know, pay the bills, I think.
Yeah,
So,
and I
which
and
is
you know
cool.
that's the thing, right? Like we all understand that if you're in a band and it's your business and that's how you make money, you have to put in the work, right? You don't go, to work and then not get paid, and you don't stay at home and get paid, right? You have to put in what you get. So I think a lot of the bands are just starting to realize now that touring is becoming more accessible. You can basically pick and choose your dates. You don't have to go, every night for 3 weeks in a row. You can take off a few nights, and you don't maybe play one or twice a week, right? You don't have to do the 6 shows in 7 days anymore. Like no one's expecting that. And I think that like now people are starting to realize that, well, if we go live on a Monday and then we play live again on a Thursday and then we play live on a Sunday, right? You get 4 days of downtime in between one day of show, where I think that's starting to appeal to especially these, I don't want to say older bands, but like the bands that have members that are up in age now, right? Where when you're
Yeah.
in your mid, 40s to mid 50s in that range, it's impossible to go every other night. Your body's going to shut down. So I think now it's acceptable to say, listen, play 2 shows a week, do it for 2 months and take 2 months off and then do it again. That's your cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also don't know what the what their managements are like, right? But I mean, we talked about this before too. That you know there are a lot of people are taking slices out of the pie, right? So if you combine, you know, if Melvins and Megadeth are with the same booking agency or whatever, I know Melvins are very DIY though, so I doubt it. But it's still like, yeah, no, I mean, we'll cut costs,
Right.
you know, and get more in our pockets if we just
Sure.
go together. You know, like it's one bus less to pay for, you know,
Yeah.
less lighting equipment to
Absolutely.
pay for.
And you know what else is cool too? That like you mentioned of the Melvins too, right? Like they're not as big as Napalm Death is in terms of like I don't think like music wise, like I think Napalm Death kind of has that in, but like you look at the Melvins back catalog and you look at all the Melvins merchandise. Mallory, thank you so much. When you look at like all the Melvins shirts that they've had over the years, right? And all that kind of like stoner stuff. And then they went into that translucent era. And then they went into the obscure era where they had all those shapes and things, right? Like they
Yeah.
can back make those shirts, right? You can sell shirts from 20 years ago, keep that same design and put it on a new shirt and sell it for $50 when back in the day you only sold it for 15, and people are going to buy it for $50 now. So I think like rebranding of merchandise, like I saw it at when I went to see A Killer's Confession, right? Not only did they have A Killer's Confession merchandise, but they had all the Mushroom Head stuff there too. So they were selling Mushroom Head stuff and the band wasn't even there,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
No,
of
I,
J-Man. And so like I get it, like it's cool that like, and they had those old school shirts, right? They had a couple old school Mushroom Head shirts from when J-Man was in the band like 15 years ago, right? Like they were selling his stuff with that old school. And I think that a lot of bands now are starting to rebrand themselves and like reissue old albums and then press them on records now again. Vinyl's coming back, right? The CDs are starting to come back, cassettes are starting. So they can rebrand everything just like they did 40 years ago and make it popular again. So I think they're in a very good time frame, and they realize that. Obviously you're a vinyl collector, and you have like go see how much some vinyl albums are going for now: $39.99, $49.99. Back in the day,
that's
you
pretty,
couldn't. You
that's
could buy
pretty
them at the
cheap.
10-cent store, right? Sometimes you buy 8 albums or 9 albums for $10. They were under $1 a
Yeah.
piece. Now they're back up to $40 again.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of my records are, you know, come from the used bin,
That's
and, you know,
that's
just,
it, right?
yeah. No, but you're absolutely right. And, you know, even if people don't listen to cassette tapes or whatever, right? It's still, you know, that's a souvenir from the gig or whatever,
Yeah.
right? You know, as much as someone would, oh,
Look
that,
at
you
that.
know,
You got the music. Look
burning
at the
heart.
music halo.
Yes, beating heart. Okay, because it looked like a burning heart to me. That was, speaking of Refused, that was the label in Sweden that released their first EP, was Burning Heart Records. Anyway, but where
So
was it going?
Joey asked to join the live, but I don't think he has enough followers to do it.
You can
let
still
me-
he can still join as a guest. I think that's possible.
well, I'm gonna tell him let's try it.
Yeah, let's
I
give
don't
a shot.
know how to I don't know how to invite him as a guest. I think he has to be following me, so I'm gonna follow him. So Joey, if you're on, I followed you. Follow me back, and then once you follow me, I think I can send you a link
saw the
to
follow.
get on. So let's see. I just invited him, so let's see if this happens.
Yeah, let's try this out.
Joey,
This is
you
new.
on?
What's up, fellas? Hey,
What's up,
I'm
man?
not
Welcome.
looking at it.
Oh,
Oh man,
crap,
I'm
again.
old, but I'm hanging in there. I'm not going to overtake y'all's chat or nothing. I hate typing, so I'm just going to listen. And I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to at least join. Thank
No,
y'all.
join in. You have a You have a voice. We're talking about what we think is going to
I do,
happen
but
in
I
music.
don't know what y'all were even talking about.
No, we'll fill you in. So me and Kelly do a podcast once a week. We talk everything hard rock and heavy metal, and we are now in the middle discussions of what we think is going to happen next year in the metal community with bands that are out there now and what they're going to do next year. So we were just talking about bands repressing all their vinyl collection and reselling it now at $49 and $39 when 25 years ago you couldn't buy an album was a dollar in most record stores because LPs weren't a big thing. Vinyl was old. And now it's making a resurgence and all these bands are repressing all their old stuff on vinyl. So we think that's going to be a huge thing come 2025.
I would have to agree, boys, but I'm going to be honest with you. I've got a lot of learning to do.
No worries. We're here.
I'm here to listen, man. I hate the typing thing. I like to speak
I hear you.
personally.
I'm with you too. I have a hard time just reading. while
No worries.
talking
Well, how
on
about
here,
this,
so-
Joey? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what kind of music you like. Like, just kind of give us a little bit of background, and we'll fill you in on what we do.
Well, you ain't gonna believe this, dude. 99.9% of my music is like R&B.
Okay.
So it's way different than what y'all are listening to. Although I do like some metal, right? And like not what y'all would probably consider metal. Like I like Metallica, Mushroom Head, Kill Switch Engage.
We just
Like-
mentioned Howard Jones earlier. I said
I
said
do
he's-
love Howard. I got to see him live at Ozfest in Charlotte 2005.
Yeah, so I think Howard is going to put out one of the better albums. I know he's got the album coming out with Adam of Kill Switch, and then he's also got a solo album that he's dropping. And I think he's going to be one of the best voices of 2025.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind. But I can tell you guys we're in a heated debate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step back and I'm going to let you guys continue talking about what you're talking about. And if I have an opinion or
Cool.
anything I want to say, I'll step in. But I'm just happy you were nice enough to invite me to
Absolutely.
actually listen in person and speak.
Welcome
in
aboard.
person.
Yeah, for sure. We love
So,
meeting
listen,
new
brother, I
people and
appreciate that.
having new people on. So you're always welcome. We always invite our guests to hop on and be a part of the show. So welcome and if you wanna hop in the conversation, you're more than welcome. Like I said, like me and Kelly were talking about 2025. So I really feel now personally that vinyl is going to be a big resurgence, and I think touring where you're going to see intermediate dates or festivals becoming another big thing because you can fit a lot of bands in a small venue if you space it out over 3 days. You can have 11 or 12 bands play on a day, and it doesn't matter. Open it at 10 in the morning and close it at 10 at night, and then do it again the next day versus having 3 bands, but they get to play for 2 hours apiece, and people by the end of the night are exhausted because they have to stay there. So I think festivals are going to be a big resurgence.
I agree with you 100%, but I'm going to tell you now, I'm probably the third leg here, so I'm just going to shut up and let you guys continue talking about what you were talking about. You guys clearly are in the know, and I'm just trying to learn, brother. Y'all go ahead and continue doing what you're doing.
I'm glad you're here, Joanne. Feel free to interrupt at any point.
I wouldn't dare. I'm genuinely kind of You
No,
guys
it's all
about
cool.
and I'll ever know. So
It's all cool. We're just
it's
chatting.
all
and it's
good, brother.
cool.
There's nothing weird. I'm trying to learn. So
Sure.
y'all keep doing what y'all were doing and educate me, man.
Sounds good. Yeah. No, but when it comes to 2025, obviously we'll be guessing. You know, I think that the
I'm
vinyl thing has had a resurgence for a while, so I think that the upward trend will continue. I think there will be more record stores. Unfortunately, what I think was lost was a lot of the used record market.
mhm.
It doesn't exist the way it used to, because it
Right.
used to be that you know sort of. Because I mean, records were expensive back in the day too. Let's not
Sure.
you
No,
know,
they
if you got new ones, right? But you could also go back to the record store and get a trade in for somebody or whatever. So they ended up with a bunch of old records, or
right.
the grandpa that died or whatever, and you bring the stack of 100 records and you trade it in for one or two newer ones or whatever, right? So record stores ended up with a lot of nuggets that people didn't know that they had. So the used record market, I think, is gone, and I'm hoping that will have a bit of a resurgence. Because I mean, when I go to a record store, I get a little bit of an aversion when it's like, okay, so this is a repressing of a record that I always wanted. Then
Yeah.
and they want freaking $45 for it too. Then it's got to be something that I really want for me to
Right.
pay that amount of money for a repressing. It's almost like, yeah, no, I'll go to Discogs and order a used one for less than that, perhaps, right? But when it comes to the festivals, yeah, I think you're right. I think there would be an upswing there. I'm curious if we know about the massive ones, right? That everybody goes to, and they just keep getting bigger, like Milwaukee Metal Fest and Riot Fest, and
Yeah.
all those things.
Yeah.
So the one thing that they need to do is try to, keep, be able to continue growing or whatever, and find venues that are, properly organized, let's say, that it can hold enough people, that there's enough food vendors, that there's enough, bathroom facilities and all that stuff, right? And still be, at a reasonable cost, right?
Right.
but I'm curious to see if because when I was younger, there were also a bunch of smaller festivals that were like a 2-day festival, perhaps.
Mhm.
The bands were not like the biggest of the headliners. Maybe there was a couple of like really big bands, and then it was almost like not a local bands festival, but like just a reasonably huge one, right? Let's say that Health, for example, they wouldn't necessarily headline a Milwaukee Metal Fest type of thing, but they could headline a smaller local 2-day festival type of thing, where it's like, that's the draw, that's the reason why we can charge $120 a ticket,
Right.
or whatever,
Right.
right? So it would be cool if more sort of like these smaller festivals were starting to happen too, right?
And I think that, like, I think from a monetary standpoint, right? I think that when you look at it from that stage of the game, right? I think ticket sales matter, right? And they are important. But I also think that, like, crowd awareness is important too, right? Because you can do a smaller festival at a smaller venue and charge a more reasonable price, but sell it out completely, versus having a bigger venue with more expensive ticket prices, but it's only at 70% or 65% of capacity. And I think now demographic of bands are starting to realize that. That's why you're seeing more and more people go to the Forge, and you're starting to go to places that hold less than 1,000 people, or sometimes even less than 500 people, but they can sell $30 at maximum capacity. But if you go to a place that holds 5,000 people, and you're selling tickets at $70, but there's only 1,500 people there, well, you make more money at the smaller venue selling it out than you do making more tickets there to less people. So I think bands are starting to like hone in on that, right? And I'm not talking about your uber popular bands, like your Metallicas are going to sell out Soldier Field every time, right? I'm talking about your mid-range bands that say, let's go to a smaller venue instead of push a bigger venue, maybe raise the ticket prices by $10, but sell it out to capacity, versus saying, well, let's go to a 10,000 seat arena. Now we have to charge 25% more because anything less than $75, we're going to lose money, but only 3,000 people are going to show up. So you're going to have 7,000 empty seats. I would rather sell out a 2,000 seat arena at $50 and make my money on the front end with merchandise and fans and pictures and meet and greets. So I think fans realize that as well, and they know that they can't go and see the bands they love because like when Guns N' Roses came around last time, right? The cheapest ticket at Wrigley was $700.
That's nuts.
Because all the $100 ones sold out in 30 seconds. All the mass vendors were buying them and turning around and selling that $100 ticket at $450. And with taxes and fees, it ends up being $629 for a $100 ticket. Fans can't do that.
Yeah.
And I hate to use it, but like, look at what happened to Taylor Swift. All those $85 and $90 tickets were selling for $3,000, and people were buying them.
Yeah. Now
So, I don't know.
I'm going to see Meshuggah, Cannibal Corpse, and Napalm Death all in the same night for $65 a ticket.
And that's
So-
that's great, right?
But I also think that Meshuggah could have charged that on their own. But I think that's the power of this, like what you're saying. Like they can go to a larger venue perhaps, because you only have to like one of those bands a lot, and then you can fill a larger venue, and that's what bands want to play in front of a large audience generally.
Sure. But they have to understand though too, if you're a band and you like to play in front of a large audience, you have to deem that large audience, right?
Yeah.
You have to know, and like I said, Sugar, 15,000 people, easy. They can do that all night, every day. But Cannibal Corpse now cannot do that anymore. Cannibal Corpse can't sell out a 10,000 seat arena. They just can't anymore. Maybe 5,000, maybe 2,500, but a 1,000 seat arena, Cannibal Corpse is sold out. They're not going to sell out a 10,000 seat arena anymore. They just don't have the stage power or the presence anymore. And I think they realize that because that's why they're hopping on tour with other bands, because a decade ago, Cannibal Corpse was the headliner all day long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now they're the opener, the second opener, and they realize that.
Yeah, same thing with Carcass. They could never draw a crowd as big as Meshuggah on any given day.
But 20 years ago, when Swan Song came out, Carcass was headlining festivals.
Sure,
they would be banned.
But again, we're talking 20 years ago.
Sure, right. That's what I'm saying. So I think bands will now start to realize that, right? Because they say, okay, listen, we were having trouble selling out a 10,000 seat arena. Let's start finding arenas that are 5,000. And if they have trouble selling that, let's find arenas or hop on with the bigger band now, right? So like, could you imagine like if Carcass were to hop on with say like Demu in Europe, like they would sell out 20,000 seat arenas all night long. But Carcass couldn't, but they know that their stage power with Demu would be able to.
They are definitely the sauce on top, Carcass, right? It's like, if you're Meshuggah, I really want to go. I really like it, but $65 and it's on Tuesday, whatever, right? Oh, but Carcass are going too. It's like, okay.
Right.
So it's a little bit of that too, I think.
1,000%.
Because it's still like, for these tours, you have Tuesday, shows or, Monday one is like, a lot of the people, I mean, they know their audience too. Like, not a whole lot of kids go see Carcass or Cannibal Corpse. Like, we're a little bit older. It's like, that's a school night. I have an early meeting in the morning or whatever, right?
Sure.
I'll catch them next time when they come on a Friday, whatever.
And
right?
you have to roll the dice, right? Because I did that with a killer confession, right? Like I knew it was going to be a long set because I had watched the videos from the nights before, and I knew they were going to play an hour and a half of their own stuff, and they were going to do an hour and a half of Mushroom Head, right? So I knew that when they went on at 9:30 at night, it was going to be 12:30 by the time I walked out of there, and I knew it.
Yeah.
And I was like, there was nothing I can do, and I had told a couple people, I'm like, listen, I'm just going to bite the bullet and be tired the next day because I really want to see this, right? And that's exactly what happened. I think I walked out of the Forge. It was 12:15. It was right after the last song. I didn't stay for the meet and greet. I just kind of hightailed it back home. And of course, that Friday I was dog tired, right? By the time I got home, it was 1 a.m. I think I got 5 hours of sleep, and I knew that it was just going to be a long day. But I also knew that if I left at midnight or earlier, then I was going to regret not staying till the end. So I'm glad I just stayed till the end and did that. But it's very hard to do that now, especially when you have a band that has 3 opening acts and the show starts at 6:30. They're not going to take the stage until 7. So that's going to be a 4.5, almost 5 hour show. So at 11:30 at night, if you have to get up the next morning, now you're saying to yourself, do I regret coming? Probably not, but like, should I have thought better about it? Definitely, right? Like, because you have obligations the next day. And you're going to be tired. You're just going to feel it. So
Yeah.
it's a difficult wait right now, right? So like I look at a lot of these bands that I'd love to see on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, but I just have to be the responsible adult and say no. I'm not going to be able to make it because I can't afford to be tired the next day.
That's just it, right? I'm not going to enjoy the show as much either because I am stressed out about being able to make it to work tomorrow morning, right? So all I'm doing here is like looking at my
Right.
watch, wondering like, when is this going to be over? Instead of just
Sure.
thinking that's the best fucking song, you know. Um, but I was thinking about, what would we like to happen next year is another cool thought experiment, right? Even if we don't see a trend, what would we like to have happen in the scene next year? And
So I like me personally, like what I would really like to see happen is that I would like to start seeing more seasoned bands start taking younger acts on the stage with them, right? The bands where the kids are in their 19s and 20s and 21s, and let them open for a band that's been around for a while so that they can get the exposure that they need. I said this before, and like that's why I like seeing like bands like Soulfly, because they will take a risk on a band that's from Nigeria and they're in their 20s and they're going to be the next big thing. They're not taking other older bands on tour with them. They find the younger bands from other countries and they give them a chance. And that's what I've always loved about Max, is because he's all about the next generation. Where I think a lot of these bands are like, they just are like, they leave it up to the record label, like, well, who's available that will go on tour with us, and they get some other older band, which is still cool. But like, I love when like seasoned artists will take and go out of their way to find newer acts to say, hey, listen, will you come on tour with us? And I know it's not heavy metal per se, but Jackal has always been like that. They will take the young guys, they find these younger bands, and they take them on tour to get them exposure, when Jackal could take any band from the 80s or 90s on tour with them and do just fine. But they always look for the up and coming acts, which is awesome because it shows that they care about the next generation, right? So when they're 15 years older and they can't do it anymore, they took the guys that are in their 20s now, who are now in their 30s, that are awesome bands, and say, listen, I Jackal gave me my start, or Soulfly gave me my start, right? And that's what I love about those bands. And it's what I hate about like bands like Metallica, where they just say, who's available, let's go on tour.
yeah, I will do yes and to yours, because I am totally in agreement with that. Because what I'm hearing so much now too is that it's always been the case that there are so many awesome bands that never get an exposure that are really good. But what I'm hearing now is that the level of professionalism and capability and how good they are, like, it's like it's up another notch. So, not only seeing, these younger bands that might be pretty unknown or whatever, are being snapped up by the older bands, but that the scene in general, that there are more shows for these guys to get that exposure and get out and play more, and that people actually show up. That's what I would like to see. Like, just because you haven't heard of this particular band, but if it's like a venue that you're familiar with,
Sure,
that's not
sure.
too far from you, like, I've got nothing to do, it's Friday, I'll just go there and check out the bands, and it's a $10 charge or whatever, right? But it would be awesome if like 200 people could show up to one of those things, just knowing that
Yeah.
no, there's gonna be good shit here. I haven't heard a single one of these bands, but I know it's gonna be good,
Right.
right? Because that's what happens, and the supply is out there, right? So that's one of the things where, man, just I would love to see more of that shit happening. Where
Yeah.
people just go out, even though if they
Right.
don't know what the hell it is.
And I think another trend that's going to continue too, and I've seen it now in the last few shows, is you're going to find bands that are taking other elements of music and bringing them on tour with them. So you're going to see metal bands start taking industrial bands and start taking hardcore bands and even rap rock bands on tour with them, and you're going to start to see them intertwine these different musical genres, right? Where you might have an industrial punk band playing with a hardcore metal band because they're friends, or they are interacting with each other, and not having the true metalheads say, why on earth would you do this? Where I think now we're more accepting to say, this is kind of cool, right? Like, you introduced me to a band that I didn't know before, where this was 20 years ago, they'd get booed off the stage because they weren't in the same vein as it. And like you mentioned before, like, death metal bands have always done that, right? They will always take other death metal bands on tour with them. So the death metal bands kind of always stay together. It's great to go to one of those shows, but it's also cool to see a death metal band, then maybe like a hardcore band. Lie, what's going on? And then, basically see another, like, maybe speed metal band in with a complete hardcore death metal band. Like, that's what I like, right? And I think you're starting to see that now, where you'll see a black metal band start to be on tour with, a hardcore band, and it works. It's very cool, right? So I think that's kind of, I think it'll be another trend in 2025, that you see. So,
Yeah. No, and I mean, I, I see that happening maybe more in the more experimental field, right? Let's face it, like, Melvins have always been kind of sort of experimental, and Napalm Death have kind of, or at least in the early days were. So the two of them getting together, and they're definitely two different genres, right?
Yeah.
Them getting together, that's really cool to me. When I went to see Comic Christ, so they're like kind of like not industrial, kind of sort of, right? But they were playing with Antania, that was like it sounded like hard death metal or black metal with, they call it doom bass, by the way, but who knows what doom bass is. So I'll just call it, it's electronic black metal basically, which was really cool. And then Biocarbon 13, which was more like a body synth type of old school, almost dancey synth pop, right? All in one show, and it was great, and everybody loved it. When Heather played last, it was that her ambient synthy dark synthy type stuff with a band that was playing like Killing Joke type music, which is obviously very, very different too. So I am totally with you on that. And I think it's been well established that folks that are into metal or that underground hard type of music are actually listening to a lot of different types of music, so they're not going to be offended,
right?
If you bring in an entirely different type of band,
right? And going along with that too, I think that's going to be the next big trend that you see in 2025, is bands just not giving a fuck about what people think. They're going to do what they want to do, and they're going to bring on tour who they want to bring on to, and they're not going to worry about that, I don't think, as much anymore. And you can start to see that in 2024, right? When you have bands that say, we're just going to do our own thing, and we're not going to have an opening act, and we're going to play for 3 hours. That's them saying, you either like us or you don't like us. come and see us or don't come and see us. And I think that a lot of bands now are starting to speak their mind about that and starting to follow the lines of the trends again, where it should have been that way all along. You pick who you want to go on tour with you. And if you can't find somebody and your, management says, well, you have the choice of this band or this band. And they say, then we don't want any of those. We'll just do it on our own. And they say, I think it's just one of those, where you have that mindset of saying, we've been doing this now for so long that we're just fed up with you telling us what to do. We're just going to do our own thing. And I think that's going to be another trend of 2025, where you're going to start to see artists say, listen, we either take this band, or this band, or we don't take any bands and we just do it on our own.
Yeah, and I think that that's also going to happen more because of the landscape the way it is now, right? I mean, a lot of a lot of people connect with their bands through social media now, right? You follow their accounts, and bands that are good, good sports at least, tend to promote other bands that they like. Hey, check out these guys, right? And they can totally see, like, there's a lot of us, let's say I'm I don't know what band, Knocked Loose or whatever, right? But here this band Kanonenfieber or whatever, really good, and half of them say, yeah, this is fucking awesome, right? Then it's like, yeah, of course we can bring Kanonenfieber on tour with us, even though they're not excited, they're more industrial or more left field or whatever, right? And so it's like you have a feel for the fans have a feel for what the band is like, so it will not be a surprise when the band brings something out of left field, because they know, like, yeah, fuck, we love the singer-songwriter, so a singer-songwriter opens up for this metal band, but the fans would know that, the band likes them, right. So it's less of a surprise rather than when they just become magazine articles or whatever. So
yeah, and then what? One last trend I think too is going to come back again, and I say this very deliberately just because of what Korn did with Adidas. But I think you're going to start seeing bands now starting to support fashion and sponsors again, where if a company says, listen, we like your music, will you wear our jeans on stage, or will you wear our shirt on stage? Or if we make a hat for you, will you wear that? I think you're going to start to see the melding again of fashion and music again. And I know that it kind of broke away with Metallica because they were happy wearing their black shirts and their black jeans, and they never wanted corporate sponsors. They never wanted any of that, even though they could have had hundreds of them. They opted to stay. But I think that when you have bands, especially like now Guns N' Roses, right? They are very fashion friendly. They had Mark Vachon in Hollywood design their their outfits for decades, right? Mark Vachon was Axl Rose and Slash's personal guy. He made all their jeans, all their shirts, all their stuff, their jackets, and I think that you're going to start to see that trend again. In 2024 really blew up when Korn teamed again with Adidas. Right. And they kind of did their collaboration where Adidas was selling Korn merchandise just strictly on that line. And I think now going into 2025, I think you're going to start to see a lot of these bands that once had collaborations with people start to do it again. And I see that especially now with, I know we talked about it a few weeks ago because he's kind of got that more punk background, but Robert Trujillo with Vans. All he wears is Van shoes. And I'm not sure if Van probably gives him 1,000 pairs of shoes every year, right? But every time he's on stage with Metallica, you can tell they're Vans because they're the most identifying shoes on the face of the planet. And he always wears them. And so I think it goes all the way back to when he was in, the skate years of his career, when he was 17, 18, 19 years old. And now that he's a multimillionaire, he still likes the shoes. So I think that you're going to start to see that trend come back around too, where rock stars are actually teaming up with fashion designers to wear their stuff, or at least be more willing to do that.
I think you're going to see a lot of that in the mid-tier too, just because people are tired of giving up 60-70% of their income to the labels and managers and all that stuff, right? So they need the money to be able to finance themselves, and I think that sponsorships, whether it's fashion or whatever else, will be a significant source of income for someone to be able to make a living.
I think so too.
From music, because they won't be able to put the money into marketing so much, so that might to get more record sales or whatever, and the money is not in record sales anymore anyway.
No.
Right. So I think that it's definitely going to be a significant part of
Yeah.
a musician's brand, to surround themselves with these things and not disappoint the fans, just so it feels like, no, it makes sense. Of course it makes sense. Of course,
Right.
Trujillo could have a Vans sponsorship because he wears
Sure.
them anyway,
Right.
or Korn with Adidas or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal, right? But why not make it a sponsorship, right? It makes you wonder, why would the brand sponsor them when, when he wears the shit anyway? Like,
Right.
what's the point of that? But you see what I mean? So I do think that those sponsorships will
Yeah.
be a little bit more
And
prominent.
then it's sad to say too, and I really don't want to end the show on such a sad note, but I really think that a lot of bands now are going into what quote unquote retirement really is, right? You just had a couple guys in Iron Maiden say, we're not going to do this anymore. Nico McBrain had a stroke and he's like, I'm not going to be able to play drums anymore. I just have to step away from the band, and went to retirement. And then Dave Murray just said the same thing the other day. He's like, I'm following in Nico's. I just can't play for this amount of time, this longer. So I think you're going to start to see the retire movement be very real in 2025, with bands saying, listen, we just cannot do it anymore. We are going to officially retire, and, kind of either pass the torch or maybe do one-off shows where they're not doing it. And I think that's a very real thing, and it's a respectable thing, right? Because we joked about it before with Kiss, right? They've been on a farewell tour since 1991. So like, I think that, I really feel that like now the retirement thing in 2025 is going to be a very real thing, right? That's going to be, something that you're going to look at and say, hey, listen, you guys are up in age. Maybe you should just take the high road and do that. Where I think a lot of it is going to be, before, I think fans would have that negative connotation, like, oh, you're quitting. You are still able to put out music. Why aren't you making music? Where I think a lot of fans now are like, listen, enjoy your retirement, right? You're 74, 75 years old. Enjoy the rest of your life. You've made us happy for decades. Now it's time to do your thing.
Yeah. No, and while that is sad, it is true. It'll be like, digging a hole near the water's edge on a beach, right? Yes, there will be a hole there for a little while, and then gradually there'll be a dent, and then there will be, obviously, there will be traces of Iron Maiden or Judas Priest, or because
Sure.
how much longer can Rob Halford go? He's a fucking
That's
machine,
it,
but
right? I mean,
how much longer? And but you see what I'm saying, right? It's gonna be like, yeah, you served us well. We're gonna miss you,
yeah.
but it's not gonna hurt the scene or whatever, right?
No.
There will be,
And I just
there'll
feel
be
like
plenty.
2025, I
There's plenty to fill the
unfortunately,
seats.
I think is going to be the breakout retirement year for a lot of bands. Like you have AC/DC, right? They said, listen, we're going to give it one more go, and we're going to do what we can, and we're going to actually say bye to everybody. I know that a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon when Elton John did it in 2023, right? He played Dodger Stadium for the last time, and he said, listen, I just want to enjoy the last years I have on this earth with my family, and I'll play maybe a show in Europe, or I'll play a show in Japan, but I'm not going to tour anymore. I'm going to spend time with my family. And he was very open and candid about it. And all the fans over those years from 1971 all the way until 2023 weren't mad at him. They were like, you should have done that years ago. Enjoy your family time. Enjoy you time. You've made us happy, and you've wrote incredible songs that have they're generational, right? People in 2050 are going to start saying, oh, that was Elton John. He's generational, right? But like, enjoy your time. He's 77 years old now. He adopted those two kids. Like, enjoy your family time. You've done it now for decades. And I think that you're going to start to see a lot of bands in 2025 and 2026 say, listen, we've done it for so long. It's time to hang it up, and we can't go on anymore. And I think now we're starting to accept it. And fans are starting to say, you guys should have done that a while ago. Thank you for hanging on for us, but enjoy your time now. It's your time.
Yeah. No, I
So-
agree.
I think that's going to be the last trend of 2025. Unfortunately, it's a sad one, but I think retirement's going to be a very real thing in the next few years, where bands are like, they're going to follow suit and not be like the Rolling Stones and basically play until they're propped up.
Let's call it bittersweet.
Yes.
Like, I think it's, service is well rendered. You've served your time. Thank you very much.
That's it.
they'll move aside, and there will be room for plenty of other great shit. So, one trend that I just want to say quickly that I think is going to happen more is that there's going to be more solo artists that, like people that sit at
Mhm.
home in their bedrooms or whatever and make their music on their own, and then they maybe go on tour and just hire people to play with them. I think there's going to be more of that, like, just because
Well,
it's
speaking on
like
that,
what I do, like sitting
what
at home. You
I
can make your
agree.
own music at home. Sounds
But
great.
what do you think about bands now that are starting to come on social media and playing in front of fans, doing basically an hour set every week where they invite their fans to listen to them come up with new music? I know I saw it the other day with Matt Heffy did it on TikTok. I couldn't believe it. I was like, why is he on TikTok? And there was like 3,500 people following him, on his live. And he was just in front of his piano with the laptop next to him. And he said, what do you guys think about this? And he hit a few notes. And then people would say, that's great, that's great, that's great. He'd put it into his laptop. He'd type in a few things. He'd go and grab his guitar and he'd be like, doom, doom, doom. And he'd be like, what do you guys think of that? And everyone would be like, that's great, that's great, that's great. And he'd put that onto the laptop and then he'd play it. You'd hear 30 seconds of what he just came up with. And he spent the hour making a song. He created a song in an hour. And it was all fan feedback. If they were like, do this instead or do that instead, he'd do it. And he basically created a song with his fans. And I think that you're going to start to see a lot of bands when you said not only are they going to find other artists to play with them, but I think they're going to use social media to just say, listen, I'll write a song on TikTok, give me a few months, and maybe I'll do that for the next year. And then now I have 10 songs written. I'm going to put out an album that I created with you guys on TikTok or whatever social media
Yeah.
platform they use.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I've tried to do that a couple of times myself. I was sitting there
Mhm.
just, okay, here's some synth
Right.
sounds, and then it's like, ooh, sounds good, dude. Like, okay, so let's do a drum beat.
Sure.
So yeah, it's really fun to do. It doesn't always turn out, and you're trying to be entertaining at the same time,
Yeah.
right?
But how
it's
cool
one of
is
those
it
things where,
that your
yeah, so
fans
it's great, right?
get to
I
pick and
think
choose what you
it's
play?
super awesome. Well, and people see your process. I mean, everybody
Right,
works
yeah.
differently, right? And so I think that's great, and it's another way of like for the independent artists too, to connect
Yeah.
with an audience, and
I agree.
people feel like they have a personal connection to the artist rather than just, oh, I bought the record,
Mhm.
So yeah,
I like it. I think there's a lot to look forward to in 2025, honestly. And I think musically, I think
it's
you're going to start to see a big diversion in metal, right? I think you're going to start to see fans backing the artists no matter what they choose if they like them. And I think you're going to start to see the artists saying, hey, listen, what if we did this instead of this? Are you guys okay with that? And if they say yes, I think they're going to start doing that. Fan
yeah,
feedback,
no,
like you said, is huge now, right? And with social media, you are able to interact with them like never before, right? The only
mhm,
time you would ever see or do anything with an artist was at a concert, right? If you got to meet them or say hi to them, right? On social media, you can interact with them like we are now. People can write
yeah,
things and they're responding to their fans in real time. Like, how awesome is that? That could never have been done, not even 5 years ago, let alone 20 years ago, right? So I think that's awesome. And a lot of these, like you said, these artists are embracing it now. Like fan feedback is huge.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Taylor Swift has done this for years, right? Where it's like, people that follow her on social media know exactly what her songs are
Mhm.
about.
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
oh yeah, But so I mean, not exactly like that can happen as easily with the metal genre so much, right?
Sure.
But I still think that there'll be, it's not for everybody, and we've talked about this before, that metalheads or metal bands tend to be a little bit more introverted and not so much outgoing and willing to share their, what they're cooking for dinner type of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
But I still think that there's going to be more of that happening. So
Yeah, I think so too. And what's kind of cool is that we as fans get to be a part of it now, right? Like we get to interact
yeah,
with them, we get to talk, right? And hopefully one day maybe one of you guys that watch us can reach out to friends that you have that might be in bands and say, "Hey, listen, follow these guys." And maybe one day we get lucky and get to interview somebody who's semi-famous and gets us on the map and all it takes is one little break like that. So, I always ask our fans, You know, if you guys know anybody or know any musicians or any artists in general that want to be a part of what we're doing, send them our way. We'd love to have them on, get their feedback, get their input. If we can help them in any way, share their stuff, let us know. You know, we'd love to have that, you know, be a part of what we do. We do a podcast, but we socially interact with you guys, and we want to continue that. You know, we want you guys to share us out, and we want you to share us with your friends and keep growing the community, and, you know, eventually, you know, get into it. And you guys mean the world to us. I was going to tell Kelly off camera, but I'm just going to say it now. For the last 5 shows we've done, every show we've hit 5,000 likes. So every show we've done now, we're over 5,000, and a couple shows we hit over 10K, but we literally hit 5,000 likes. We've only been on for 29 minutes. So like, that's awesome. So thank you guys for doing that for us. We really appreciate it.
For an hour, but you know.
No, yeah.
I've been on for an hour.
59 minutes, right?
But that's okay. No, I couldn't say more. And for me personally, and you know, being a little bit of retrospective, I think our next one will probably, unless we go on New Year's, and next one will be in the new year. But you know, meeting you and you Mark, and
you know what
as
we
well
could
as
do, right?
you know, everybody on here, right? As you know, when last year started, I had no idea that this is gonna happen, right? And it's the greatest thing.
Yep.
It's the greatest thing to have met you and everybody else that's
It's
on here or
fantastic.
whatever.
I say that all the time, right? Like, how awesome was it that we came across each other on the live, and we reached out to each other and started this thing now that's kind of, you know, the train is rolling, and I don't see it stopping. So like, this is awesome. And it gives me something to look forward to, right? Like, coming on with you once a week is fantastic, right? It's a nice
so much fun.
outlet, and we get to talk about stuff we want to talk about, and it's kind of our show. So we can bring in our lives into it and stuff. It's great.
Yeah, it's super awesome. So thank you, and thank you everybody here, and we'll keep it going. And I'm optimistic that that the TikTok thing will continue. I
hope
keep
so.
my hopes up. I keep my hopes up. So hopefully we can just keep going and
I agree.
do this for a long time.
Yeah, so that's great. So guys, we're gonna end it now. We agreed that we were gonna stick to an hour, so we both got stuff going on tomorrow, but we will do this next week, whether we do it New Year's Day or the day after. Who knows? Maybe we'll even go live at 11:59 on New Year's Eve just to bring in the new year with you guys. Who knows? Crazier things have happened. So let's we'll wrap it up now. But guys, thank you again for all the love and support. You know, I know Ellie and the other Ellie are on, and Lay's on, and there's been a few other people on tonight that have really supported us and been with us, guys. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. We mean it. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. You guys are a great group. We love having you guys with us. We love having you be a part of our show, and all the love and support. And, you know, I know both Ellies were basically hitting the like button. Their fingers got to be completely dead by now. They probably have no feeling in any of them, because Lay's another one too. They've been liking the show all night long. So thank you guys so much. We really, really appreciate it. We love the support that you guys give us. We love everything that you do for us, and we cannot thank you enough. So like I said, 2025, full steam ahead.
Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year, guys. We'll
side.
see you guys next week, maybe before New Year, maybe during, maybe after, but it'll definitely be sometime next week.
For sure. We'll see
All
what
right,
happens.
guys, if you don't follow me, follow me. If you don't follow Kelly, follow Kelly. I say this all the time. He's doing great stuff over there. So please, thank you again for all the love and support. And if you like what we're doing, guys, feel free to share it out. I know you guys do. I cannot thank you enough for everything that you guys are doing for us. So thank you. We love you, and we'll see you guys next week.
Cheers. Thank you.